Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 98 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choit. What's up? If you're new here, what I do is interview people from all walks of life, most often comedians and other artists about their lives and careers. The conversation is casual, but I also ask everyone to highlight someone they love, someone who they admire, who influenced them, inspired them, or supported them. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com. And the Instagram handle is @PeopleWeLovePodcast. And you can find me on Instagram as well, @AdamChoit, my name, if you want to follow me. And it's the same on Twitter, @AdamChoit. And please remember to tap subscribe or follow on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And yes, 5-star positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated as well. So, today's guest is Monroe, Michigan's own comedian Brad Wenzel. Growing up a WWE wrestling fan who wasn't particularly athletic, it wasn't long before he discovered SNL and stand-up and made his way to an open mic to perform for the first time at age 16. But besides talking about comedy in college and beyond, and even his sets on Conan, Brad also tells me all about his strong Michigan connection to family and the music of Bob Seger. Let's just get started. Here's Brad Wenzel. So it's good to see you today, Brad Wenzel. Thank you for joining me. Did I say your name right? I did.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. First
Gotcha.
try, knocked it out of the park. Thanks for having me, man. I
for sure. How are you holding up during this super fun? Well, I keep thinking it's 2020 because that's what I was asking every guest last year. How you know, this super fun 2020. Well, this year's been super fun already. You know, the first 6-7 days.
It's been pretty wild, man.
But what about you in your world? How's like your world? How
I'm like fine, but like not like I'm like fine in the sense that I'm like it could be so much worse. Like I'm not ill. And I can like pay my rent right now. So like there could be like way worse problems. But like just from a day-to-day standpoint, I guess mentally it's I'm ready for this to be done.
Yeah.
You know?
But it sounds like you feel grateful, and I think that's something people are feeling, and myself, too, that I'm lucky in the same ways that you're describing. So I feel like, that's a small silver lining of whatever the world is going through on many levels.
For sure, it's
for some people.
There's so much to complain about, but you almost don't want to complain about it because you're like, it could be way worse depending on your situation.
Just every time you complain, you have to give that caveat.
Yeah. I don't know if that's Catholicism or what, but I'm like, I can't say it out loud, or I'm gonna get it.
Let's get into it. Were you born? Were you a Catholic preschooler or something like that? Did you go to Catholic preschool?
Catholic.
Really?
Well, actually, my preschool was it was like a Lutheran preschool, even though I wasn't Lutheran. But it was Catholic school, like K through high school, like the whole deal, So it got in there.
Yeah, and you tell me where you grew up. You grew up in Michigan, and did you have like siblings? And like, tell me.
I grew
background.
up in Monroe, Michigan, which is like in southeast Michigan. It's like a half hour south of Detroit and a half hour like north of Toledo. So it's kind of like not a lot going on right there, but it's kind of right in between those two cities.
Factories. There?
No, but that's where like my dad's an auto worker, and that's where like a lot of people are Southeast Michigan. A lot of people are auto workers and stuff, but the plants themselves would be different.
Yeah, people travel far.
Yeah, like I think my dad drove 25 minutes or something. I think to where he worked, but Monroe is almost like. It's like it's on maps. Like it's a small city.
It's on maps. That's good.
It's on like a lot of maps. Like it's got that.
Good to hear.
But it's like there's not a ton going on, and I grew up on the outskirts of this small place, and so that kind of skewed almost rural-ish. And so not a lot going on. There was a golf course across the street. That was a sod farm where they just sell grass. So just like fields of grass. And then that was later turned into a golf course, and then I like worked there from when I was like 14, like through college and all
Gotcha.
that. And so yeah, it wasn't a ton going on, but that's where I grew up.
Did you say you had siblings or?
Oh yeah, I got an older brother, Scott. He's like 3 years older than me.
Gotcha. And what about like you in elementary school? What kind of kid were you? What were you like? What did you do for fun? Just running that field across the street? Was that it? Well, not that there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with that.
No, I do think
That's the best thing you could do for a kid, maybe in some ways.
a lot of as a kid, a lot of riding a bike just around because the streets weren't super busy, so it was a lot of a lot of bike riding. I did some sports, but I wasn't very athletic, and I was like bored a lot. This actually, even in the pandemic, um, there's been times where I'm like, oh, I feel exactly like a kid again, where I can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
I
you don't
can't
have you're
I
grounded.
can't do anything in that time before you can even drive or anything. And I'm just like, you're just kind of trying to entertain yourself. And I think sometimes I wonder if that, especially like in the summertime and stuff, like just like all that watching too much TV and all that free time, if that made me like a little bit more creative or something. I don't know. But that's also just me speculating.
Well, did become like a stand-up comedian, so I'm guessing that watching TV did have some influence on you, especially if you were doing a lot of it. What were you watching
Yeah.
when you were like a young kid?
When I was a young kid, well, we had cable, which was a big deal.
Sure.
And so that like really, broadens, I guess, your horizon as a kid. But a lot of, well, I was really big pro wrestling fan as a kid, and
I
so
was
a lot of
me
that.
too.
Yeah, I think a lot of comedians are. I think
Why is that?
I don't know, but I think maybe we found the next best thing. Like if you were a kid and you're like, oh, maybe I'll be a pro wrestler one day, and then you get older and you're like, all right, that's insane. But this comedy thing, I can get that going.
Yeah,
That's
wrestling.
my
Go on.
theory. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but
Yeah, I think wrestling is awesome because like I'm not really following it today so much, but in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, kind of on and off over the years I did. But I think it combines everything: comedy, drama, athleticism, writing,
yeah,
directing, television, performance, special effects. Like it's really like
yeah. There's nothing really
sex,
like it.
violence, nudity.
It's
Sometimes.
it's its own art form. It's in stand up, like wrestlers and stand ups, you're both trying to get a certain reaction from a live audience, and you're performing to get that reaction, whether it's boos or cheers or a laugh. Like it's that same, you go from town to town and you try to get this reaction.
Yeah, you want a reaction. You don't want silence.
Exactly.
Silence is the worst thing. You better off getting booed, or you're better off getting any kind of reaction. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not the one I guess in wrestling, even if it's not the one you want, if like
That's still got to be better than silence.
yeah, they just
Yeah.
change your character to a heel or a face.
Yeah,
The audience
exactly.
is changing it for you already. What was your era? What wrestling wrestlers were you into?
It was what I think of like 2002, 2003,
Yeah,
especially like 2003. It was that was when like Brock Lesnar had his first like
sure.
run before he went to UFC and kind of became more known. He was still had a big run in like 2002, 2003. And so as a kid, he was kind of the big guy before he left, and then John Cena became the thing. But there was like 2 years kind of between the kind of super popular time with Stone Cold and The Rock and all that, and between that and John Cena, where there was like that little Brock Lesnar area. And
Yeah.
I think that to me was prime childhood wrestling. Eddie Guerrero, guys like that.
Yeah, I remember, of course, more the Attitude Era with Stone Cold and The Rock and all that, and even before then, like that's my era.
That
That's
was a
cool.
lot of watching that. There was a Tacoma video store where I lived, and they had the wrestling pay-per-views on VHS to rent. So I watched a lot of that late 90s stuff retroactively because I would rent the tape from Tacoma Video. And then you'd be jumping in like no context, so you want to know what was going on, but it was still like exciting. And so
That's
that,
interesting.
yeah, I did
Yeah, I
that a
did
lot
the
as a
same thing.
kid.
I did the same thing. I or not, I would rent VHS tapes of wrestling pay-per-views and watch those as a kid. I was into it.
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Do you still watch it?
I do. I've watched less in the pandemic because I don't like it without the audience as much. Some people
Right.
like don't really care. They're just like it's whatever. But I realized I was like really it's I was enjoying part of what I enjoyed about it was is what the reaction is getting. Like
Sure.
I don't think I even realized that until it went away that I was like, oh, a big part of why I enjoy watching this is I want to see if it's working or not. Like I want to see if the bad guy is getting the booze he wants, and I think it's very funny when they do. And the same for getting cheered too. And so when you take the crowd out of it, for me, it's not as fun to watch. So, but I still follow it. I'm still a fan. Yeah.
Dude, but you really watch it from more like a comedian's brain and perspective. I feel like just by the way you're talking, it's interesting to hear the
Yeah,
way you
yeah.
describe
I
it.
didn't I didn't even realize it, like I said, until they took the crowd out of it. I was like, oh, I think that's like a big part of why I enjoy watching this.
What what how would you describe like the current era versus like past eras? Like what is because I mean I see the promos, I see the wrestlers, but I'm like I don't know what I feel like the characters aren't as distinct. I mean they haven't had The
Uh-huh.
Rock, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, whatever, and maybe they will, but what is the difference between like
I think now it's there's actually like now there's like more wrestling on TV than there's ever been. It's almost like it's like teetering on like oversaturated where like it's impossible to watch it all, but kind of like the way a lot of things in our culture has gone, it's like more different niches.
right?
So
They don't compete with each other.
not necessarily like there's like stuff geared towards really hardcore fans and I enjoy that, and like there's for the first time in like a decade or no almost 2 decades there's like another like big promotion to go up against the WWE because they were the only game in town for like
Right.
almost 20 years. And now there's in the last couple of years, and then the pandemic hit and kind of messed up their kind of big launch, but there's like two big companies now, so that's kind of exciting. And then there's like different niches, and WWE is kind of the big mainstream thing. It's sort of the I don't know the Jimmy Fallon or whatever of of wrestling, and then there's like
Yeah.
kind of more uh specific genres, you know.
Yeah, we'll move on from wrestling soon enough. But what
Yeah,
did you
everyone
ever?
turned this off. They
No,
were
this is
they were like,
awesome.
Jesus Christ.
No, this is awesome. I'm into it. But did you ever think that you would do something in wrestling or become a wrestler as a kid or anything
When I
like
was a
that?
kid, I did. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a wrestler. And then the very like little kid mindset. And then when I got like a little bit older, I was like, that's not realistic. I'm gonna be a pro wrestling commentator. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
there's only 4 of those in the world. And then I and then I kind of got off that track. And then I don't think super long after that I started like becoming a real comedy nerd.
Yeah. But you would do it. You would do it if you had any opportunity to like be involved as like a manager or in
Oh, that would
wrestling
be very
or
fun. Yeah.
anything like that. A commentator, like you say.
Yeah, that would be very fun. I did my buddy had his bachelor party. Uh Matt McClowry, who's a comic, he had a bachelor party, and we went to a wrestling school, and they taught us like the basics, like the fundamentals and stuff. And that was like I never thought I'd get to do that, but that was pretty fun.
Did it stick?
No, I was like terrible. I did like one thing really well. Like it was essentially like a tumble, and the wrestlers were like, "Oh," and I was like,
Made your day.
what if I'm secretly like amazing at this? What if I like this is my true calling? And then like everything else I like couldn't do well at all, and I was like, all right, never mind. But it was fun. For a split second I was like, am I secretly like very good at pro wrestling?
I feel
I
like
am
you could be
not.
like a heel manager. I could see it. Like
Yeah,
that could be your
I
thing.
could trip people. I could
Yeah,
just talk
yeah.
shit for the
That's the other
outside.
great thing about wrestling. There's a place for kind of everybody, all kinds of people of all sizes, and not everyone's going to be
It's
the champion of
true.
the world, but like it's a freak show in
Yeah.
a sense for all
There's
ranges.
total variety. Yeah.
Right. Well, what about the comedy? I guess because you did say that you got an interest in that, so I guess maybe in middle school or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. All the kind of usual suspects, I would say, like Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I found that at some point, and then well, when I was really young, I really loved Adam Sandler and a lot of like just comedy movies, and then I remember kind of like putting like reverse engineering that where I'd be like, I really like Adam Sandler and the funny people in these movies. Oh, they were all on Saturday Night Live. And then like, oh, they were all stand-ups before they were on Saturday Night Live. And that's how I kind of started to like understand like where comedians came from in my like little kid brain.
Made sense.
And then
That's good to put that together.
I think a little bit after that was when like I started and then like just watching like Comedy Central because they just had those half-hour Comedy Central presents on like all the time. And so I think that kind of all happened. I don't know exactly chronologically how it happened, but that was when I kind of got into comedy, was kind of getting the stand up through Comedy Central. But yeah, I was probably like 13, 14 when we were watching that stuff.
And like, how did you progress or become influenced like directly by this? Did you start like writing jokes or doing mics at some point when you were real young? Like where?
I was pretty young. Yeah. I wrote, I was actually, when I was like 15, I want to say I started writing jokes, but I didn't know what my end game was going to be. Cause I was like, I'm writing these jokes, but I don't think I had even admitted to myself, like, I'm going to do stand up with these. I'm like, I'm 15, so it doesn't matter anyway. And I was kind of doing it in this bubble. And then I had an older cousin who was like 6 years older than me. And he was also like a comedy fan. So he and I would always talk about, oh, did you see this special or this album or whatever? And then he one day was like, hey, you should, if you're funny, if you ever get like 5 minutes together, I'll like take you to an open mic. And I had already been writing jokes for like a year, but had never told him that. And so then I was like, oh yeah. And so then I wrote jokes for like another year. And then eventually I felt like, okay, I have like 5 that's good. And so I was like, hey, do you still want to do that? And he was like, yeah. So then he drove me to my first mic in Ypsilanti, Michigan, in this like kind of, it's funny, it's like kind of like a nicer looking family Italian restaurant, but at the time it was more of a hole in the wall bar. And I did two open mics when I was like 16 and then 17, and then I took a, but I didn't know how to get into it. I like fell in love with it from that first open mic because there were people
Wow.
there, because in Michigan open mics can get like crowds. So my first time doing stand-up, it was in front of like a room of people, not like just comics. And so I got like this huge, it went surprisingly well. I wasn't good, but I did well. Huge
What does that
adrenaline
mean?
rush. And I was just like, like, there's no way the stand-up I was doing was good stand-up. Like the jokes couldn't have been that great. And I was like shaking because I was 16. I was very nervous. But the audience like liked me, and I
Yeah.
had punchlines. Like I knew how to like write a joke at least somewhat. And so I had enough decent stuff that I did well. And they were, I think, a really warm like crowd. They were like really forgiving, you know? So I did well that first time. And then I was like, oh man, there's nothing like this, you know?
Yeah, I bet. Yes, because they probably knew that it was maybe your first time and were being
Yeah,
supportive and
the
whatnot. And
host I
you're a
remember.
kid.
Yeah, I was so visibly young, and the being like 16, and I remember the host was like, "This guy, it's his first time, and this isn't an easy thing to do," and so they were very like a very like supportive kind of open mic audience, and then the second time I did it, it was like very like mediocre to bad. It was like a very like realistic reaction. I was like, okay, this is kind of more what it's like, but that first time, I think that happens to a lot of people, where that
Yeah.
first time they hit a triple and they're just like, oh my god, am I just is it this every time, and and then it's not, but then you have to learn how to do it, consistently and for real, basically. um but yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to it.
Yeah, I've talked to a bunch of comedians, and that's how they describe the first time, because they know most of the time the audience knows it's your first time, and they're not gonna like ruin your life. And then
Yeah.
times 2 through 100 are much harder. A few
Yes.
people
Yeah.
I've talked to were like, "I'm not telling anyone it's my first time." And they go in there, and they've still done. I don't remember, maybe not as well, but most of the time they know it's your first time.
Yeah, I think it was just obvious because I was like a
Kid,
teenager, and
yeah.
they were like, it was very clear I didn't know what I was doing. And so the host, I think, was like, all right, I'm going to try to set him up decently. And so, yeah, it was fun. And then I was really naive because I didn't know. I would like call comedy clubs in the Detroit area, and I would be like, "Hey, do you have like?" Because I didn't want to get anybody in trouble or get in trouble, so I would be like, "Hey, do you have like an age limit?" Which, if you ask a comedy club that, they're gonna like say, "Of course, it's 18. You have to be 18." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay." And
You
so I
said to
was like
perform.
16.
You said to perform, or you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah.
Or I don't even know if I was so young and
Yeah.
didn't know how anything worked, but. I think I just asked if they had an age limit. I might have said to perform, and they're like, "Yeah, it's 18." And so I was kind of I wanted to do it more, but I didn't. I don't know how to like get in. And then I went to an open mic that would have been like my third time, but it got canceled. But there was another dude, comic named Brett Klein, who was like a few years older than me, but also like young, and he clearly like knew what was going on, and was like a comic. And I was like, hey, how do you do this if you're like a young guy, if you're not 18? And he was like, oh, go take this comics class, and then he'll basically vouch for you. And so then, off his suggestion, I took this local headliner, Bill Bouchard in Detroit, who still I think teaches classes, and good guy. His class is helpful for young comics, and I took that when I was like 17, and then it worked, because then he could like vouch for me basically and be like, oh, he's fine. And he smartened me up, because he was like, hey, just don't tell anybody how old you are, and no one will ask. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So then I went off that, and then I could perform. And then and I wasn't terrible. So it's a small scene. So once you get your foot in the door, you can go up at these places. They don't really hassle you for being, 18 or whatever, 17.
That's cool. What about the rest of your high school life? Like, what was it just comedy? And what kind of student were you? Were you into other things? What kind of music were you into? We'll get into some other things, and then see where the comedy went.
Yeah, I was into classic rock when I was in high school, for sure. Really liked the classic rock stations, and then uh I think as I got older, I got more away from that, more into just like what's newer rock, but has that kind of feel to it or something.
Yeah,
But
you're speaking my language.
yeah, and then it became a lot easier with like music streaming and everything. You can like find stuff, but yeah, it was definitely classic rock when I was a teenager. I had AC/DC sticker and a Van Halen sticker on my car. And then later I was like, oh, this is kind of lame, but I like couldn't get it off. And I was like, I'll never get tattoos for that reason. I felt like I had burned myself, and I was like, I'm never going to do that again, you know?
Yeah, nothing against those bands. Those are like
No,
some of my
no.
favorite
And I
bands.
circled
but it's not
back
right for
on
it's
them.
not right for you to have. You don't want to be a bumper sticker guy.
Yeah, I circled back on them like later, but like there's like a period when you're a teenager and you're just like, oh, the thing I liked 3 years ago is bad now. And, you know, and I want to move on from that. And then when you get older, you're like, oh, that's all kind of arbitrary. And some of that stuff's pretty good, you know? So.
Did you play any instruments or anything like that?
No, when I was younger, I took like middle school age, I took guitar lessons, but like I never got far at all. I think I took them for a year, but I could not figure it out at all. I could do a few chords and play a few riffs, but I did not have any musical ability. But I envy people who do, you know.
Yeah. What about Bob Seger? Was he played like in the crib when you were growing up or something like that?
Yeah. My a lot of Michigan dads are like, that's your gateway to Bob Seger, and so there's like, it was on in the house a lot, especially when we like do like chores, like clean the house on the weekend or something. It was like Live Bullet. My dad would play in his like stereo. And so, there's like video of me as like a toddler, like dancing around to like old time rock and roll and stuff. So it was definitely present, but I didn't get into Seeger as like a fan till way later. Because when you're like younger and all the other classic rock's a little bit like shinier, and you're like, oh, Seeger's like for dad, like that's dad rock, you know. And so you're more attracted to like some of these other bands and stuff. And then when you get a little bit older, you're like, oh no, Seeger's actually the shit. And then
You always
got
come
into
back.
Seeger more later, yeah. But it was definitely around.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of come back to everything at some point. I never stopped really liking something. Just like, oh, I'm not really into that right now. But I always come back around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and yeah, sometimes like when you're really young and impressionable, someone will be like, "That sucks," and then you're like, "Yeah, that sucks," and then you get older and you're like, "That guy was full of shit." I don't know what
Somebody
he was
lied
talking
to me
about. Yeah. You just wanted to impress some weird guy who's like 2 years older than you or something like that, you know.
You got a favorite Seeger song?
I would say that's a hard question because I there's so many. Ramblin' Gamblin' Man's definitely up there, as is Main Street is up there. I think those might be my top two. Feel Like a Number's another really good one.
Hey, you're a hardcore fan. You're a hardcore fan. You know, he's your He's like Jersey to Springsteen is Michigan to Seeger.
Detroit's Springsteen for sure. Absolutely.
I was like, this dude's gonna say Night Moves or something like that. Like, we're.
I mean, Night Moves is great too, but
Sure.
I think I go deep because I do that Seeger podcast with Trevor Smith. And so we do them sporadically, but we do like deep dives and stuff. And he has he has a whole crazy back catalog that like is hard to even find. Like it's not digital really. And so he's if you're like a music kind of nerd, he's a fun person to explore.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, because I've never really gone down like, that thing where I listen to everything they've ever recorded for like in a period of like 2 weeks. Like go down that thing where I'm like put on their album and then one after another, like for like a day or two. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be where I do that.
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of he has like 7 albums you can only really get on like vinyl. Like because he never reissued them. So there's like this whole like era that is like you have to like go hunt for the Easter eggs to listen to it.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of work.
Oh yeah, if it's only some fun if that's something you're into, you know.
I'll find stuff online. There's plenty of stuff. But it sounds like you had a pretty good childhood in Michigan with the Seeger playing in the background. Even if you were bored at times, you don't have too many complaints.
No, I had like a perfectly like fine childhood. I was very lucky, kind of just run of the mill middle class, like nothing too dramatic childhood.
That's good. What about when you were 17, 18? Like, what did you what were your like plans? Were you going to go to college? Just keep going with the comedy? Where did you think, life was going to go for you?
I was from that first like set. I was like, I really want to go after this comedy thing. I was even in that early stage where I was like not performing super often, but like I still kind of like knew what I want to do, and I'm like,
Yeah, you love it.
I'm finishing high school as this is happening, so I'm like, I'm only getting more access to like freedom and free time and stuff like that. And so I'm like, all right, I want to keep pursuing this, but I wasn't like super confident that I could uh like make that a job. Like that seemed like really pie in the sky to me. I was like, no one's gonna like pay me though. And so I was like, and my parents whole thing, they were like fine with it, but they were like, just like, you gotta go to college, like please go to college. And I think they were really worried I wouldn't. But I was like, no, I'm like fine with going to college because like I don't think this is like gonna work out, or it might not be a thing for a long time. So I was like, I'm not that good, you know. And then I did it all through college, and it was the more experience and the more I came up, then it was like, it was funny. It was all these headliners and stuff would be like, what are you doing? Like, you don't need to go to like, you should just do this, like you're good, like just do this. And then at a certain
Wow.
point it was me being like, well, I'm already, it makes more sense to finish at this point because of what I've put into it than not finish. So I did college in like 3.5 years, and then was like, and like before my last semester at college, I had like a really crazy period where I did like Montreal and New Faces and stuff. And then I was like, oh, okay, I can like, I think I can pursue this. Like, I'm gonna knock out this last semester, but like, this is what I'm doing. I don't really care about this degree. You know,
Wow.
I think I had like a little stamp of approval. I felt like, so I was like, okay, I'm not delusional. I can do this kind of thing.
That's exciting. It must be exciting, and for you to that happen to get that sort of like
Yeah,
confirmation, affirmation, whatever.
it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy because I was really young and I was in Detroit still, and so it was like kind of just right place, right time with a lot of stuff. I cut some breaks in Detroit like early on, and that kind of, I think, gave me a bit of a little confidence boost, like that I like should keep I'm on the right track kind of thing.
Yeah. Where did you go to college, and what did you study, if anything, a major or something like that?
Yeah, I went to the University of Toledo, which is if you're from Monroe County, Michigan, you still get in-state tuition, even though that's in Ohio. So it was like the cheapest like option other than community college for me. So I went to college in Toledo and studied communications, which is just like the most generic kind of, I just need to get a degree and get out kind of thing. I was like, what is the least math, was kind of my approach, and that had like no math. So I was like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. And then I spent a lot of my time in Ann Arbor though, because that's where one of the comedy clubs was. And then I met my now fiance. She went to U of M in Ann Arbor. So then between her and the club there, I just ended up spending like all of my time in Ann Arbor.
Nice.
Yeah. But that was kind of my college experience, I guess.
Well, congrats to you guys, by the way. That's
Thanks.
exciting. That's exciting. And so I'm guessing then you guys moved to LA together after
Yeah,
college.
after I finished college, and then she had like another year to go, and then I needed like a year to like save money and get stuff together anyway. And then I did I did Conan the first time too while I was in Detroit. So then it was kind of like, okay, I think I can I'm going to try my hand at one of the coasts now. And so then she finished her degree, and then it was like, all right, let's go. And so yeah, we moved out to LA together like 6 months after that.
Gotcha. So when you did Conan's show, you did a set on the show, and that was when he was on location in Michigan.
No, I was in Michigan. I flew out to LA to do it, which was like surreal.
Yeah, tell me about that. I mean, that's your most high profile gig at that point, I assume.
Yeah, for sure. It was. Yeah, I did Montreal, which was also like
right. That's pretty big.
Like very like crazy to me. And then that was kind of a whirlwind. And then I went back I was still in Michigan, so I went back and finished college, and really let all that any momentum cool off, any interest. But I met my manager at the time when the Montreal stuff happened, like right before that, kind of. And so then I did Montreal, and he was like, go finish college. So I was back in Michigan, finished college, and then I was just sending tapes to the Conan booker basically via my manager. So I would be making tapes in Detroit and Lansing and all these places, and then sending them to him, and then he would send them to the booker, and then they liked what they saw. So eventually I got booked, and then I flew out and did the show, and it was like nuts. And then I was back and I went back to Michigan, and then like 6 months later it was like, all right, like, because the plan was always like, I'm gonna move to New York or LA eventually. And then I think when I did Conan that first time, then it was kind of like I felt like, okay, it was another like kind of confidence boost that like, okay, I should, maybe now's the time to leave, kind of thing. Because I'd been doing stand-up there for about 5.5 years at that point, and when that kind of all kind of happened. And so yeah, then I came out here after that.
That's great. Super exciting times, I imagine. Did you always have the same kind of like style to what you were doing, and just got better and better, or did you have any like style evolutions of like,
it was
you
the
as a comic?
same. It was the first one. It was just improving on that same style. Like, it was always like short jokes, but the jokes were definitely like, I was just doing like a horrible version of what I do now when I started. And then I just honed that and got better over the years. And my delivery changed. Even like, I can't watch that first Conan because even that's like 5 years ago, and my delivery is super weird. And then it kind of gets a little bit more natural as the years kind of go by. But yeah, that the delivery stuff changed, and the writing improved a lot, but it was always like one-liners basically.
You just have to go through the process and get those reps. Is that what it is to get? I was going to ask like what changed, but then you said it's more natural, and I was like, oh, that makes sense with the repetition that would happen, and improving the writing with working at it.
I had like my delivery was more like I had more of a shtick, and it was almost like I never felt like I was doing like a character or something, but it was like less. It was more like, all right, I'm like doing stand up now, and I always sounded like I was like lifting a couch, like when I did my jokes. It was like it was like very strained, and this still like this low energy thing. But then over the years, it just kind of developed and got more like just close to my regular kind of personality and stuff. But yeah, it was just reps, and then a lot of comedy is just like watching comedy and learning what not to do and what's more original and less original, and kind of coming up in the Midwest and doing that MC feature headliner like ladder, and so you kind of learn lots of tricks as you kind of climb that ladder and stuff. And so yeah, it's like you said, it's reps, really, just kind of keep improving.
Is there anything that like you said, what not to do? Like something that you shouldn't do that's not like an obvious like no, like, or like a thing? Is there something that you see people doing a lot of the time and it's like, no, you shouldn't be doing that? But
I would say it's like a thing I noticed like from when I like started out to over the years was just you might not know what is overdone until you watch a lot of comedy. And then if you watch a lot of comedy and not just professional, not just specials and stuff, but I mean like live comedy, like touring headliners, you'll start to see what stuff is like, oh, like everyone's doing a joke on this. Like, so I don't want to do that. I want to do something a little more different to stand out, kind of a thing. So, but you don't know that till like you put in the years of kind of like studying it, and it's a lot of learning like what not. That's I guess what I would say for like what not to do. Like just if everyone's talking about like now it might be like or a couple of years ago it would have been like Tinder, then it's like maybe don't do a Tinder bit because
Yeah.
everybody. But I think when you're starting out, you're just like, what's funny, and you develop better taste and stuff, I would say.
Yeah, it's hard to be original, I imagine, especially when you're starting out and doing these topics. But I could see, obviously experienced comedians can do good Tinder jokes and
Oh,
have
totally,
original
totally.
takes and all
If you
this
have
stuff.
your own angle on it and everything, but I just mean like, I guess yeah, developing taste, and then also I was so young too that it was like I was learning how to be a human, like a person, as I was learning to do stand up too. So it's like, oh yeah, when I like 17, you're like, you don't know anything. I still don't know anything, but like especially then, like 10 years ago, you're like that. I didn't know anything. I was just like a babe in the woods kind of thing, and then you you learn as you go. I guess I don't know if anything I'm saying is making sense, but
I think it's making some sense. I feel like every day we're learning more, but also realizing that we know less.
yeah, yeah.
I'm deep like that.
The best way you summed it up better like 10 minutes ago when you just said reps. I'm like
Oh
you just gotta get reps and experience, and then you'll
yeah,
learn. Yeah.
yeah. And has that been the continuing journey in LA? Tell me about like LA. I guess maybe the early days, and kind of like catch me up to that journey.
Yeah.
Highlights or lowlights, either ones.
I've been out here like almost what 20, so it'll be 5 years in June. So I've been out here like 4.5 years, and yeah, it's one of those things where you like it the more the longer you're here, I think. But there's definitely some areas that I like a lot, and some areas I would like to improve on. I'd like to be able to perform more than I do, and stuff like that. And that's been
Sure, of
like
course.
not in pandemic aside, I'd still like to perform more, and it's definitely like it gets better over the years the longer you're here, but it's there's just not a ton of stage time here, and so that was kind of an adjustment. Whereas I perform more in Detroit, like I could get up constantly, and so it was kind of like taking, what's the expression, taking one step back to take two steps forward or something. That's
Sure.
kind of how LA feels sometimes. Like there's other opportunities and stuff, but also I I had to kind of recalibrate, like how do I do what I was doing in Detroit here? Where can I get up? Where can I work on new jokes and stuff like that, and then still doing the road and all that too. So it's been, yeah, it's I'd say it gets a little better as time goes on, but yeah, during the pandemic I'm going insane because I'm just like, why am I here, kind of thing. But
Hang in
yeah,
there.
it magnifies those kind of things, I guess.
For sure. Yeah, you've definitely talked about some of the challenges with comedy and getting booked and becoming good at it. What about the scene? You ever have drama with other comedians and backstabbing and joke stealing and fights and things like that? Or is it the scene pretty supportive? I mean, I feel like it is from what I've seen, but what
Yeah, I
about
haven't
your
had
experience?
any drama, not that I'm aware of. It's been like what in Detroit or here, it's always been pretty like low key. I think if anything in LA, I'm like very under the radar kind of thing. Where like I my manager and I have joked about it, where it's like comedians don't even know who. Like he'll mention me to other comics and be like, I have no idea who that is. So like, if anything, sometimes I'm like, oh, I've been here a while, but I'm like still like kind of under the radar, it feels sometimes. But then it depends where you are, because then other nights you walk into a room and you're like, I know everybody here, kind of thing. So LA's interesting like that. I think you got to kind of be around a while to kind of commingle with everyone and stuff. But no drama, I would say. Nothing too crazy on my end.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying, because like there've been like this is gonna come out wrong, but like most other comedians probably don't care that you've been on TV. It's like, okay, so everyone's had like been had their a few times on TV or whatever. It's like, so no
It
one cares
matters
in the same way, and
It
they might
matters less in
outside of
LA
LA,
than anywhere, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
But that's awesome, man. You've had some great experiences in comedy, and well deserved and earned, and you're a funny dude for sure. I've seen you.
Good things, I hope.
Yeah, of course. I was going to ask, what about goals, plans, dreams, pandemic aside? Like, where do we see ourselves in 3, 5, 10 years?
I mean, it's a good question, because the pandemic makes you so uncertain of everything. But I was gearing up to. I did my first album a few years ago. And so I was like, my big thing for 2020, especially during the like January, February, up till the pandemic hit, I was like gearing up to like, I'm going to do my second recording, which whether it's an album or I can try to get somebody to film it or whatever. But that was 2020's big goal, I was like pretty close material wise. I felt I was like 85% there. And then the pandemic hit, but I've had all this time to write too. So now it's going to be like coming out of it. I just want to, put together this next like hour basically, or album or taping or whatever it's going to be. I don't know. But that's kind of my next thing that I've been thinking about for like months, is just like, okay, how am I going to put this material together? Because I had most of it kind of ready. And so, how can I take the new stuff I've written, figure out what works there, take the stuff. So yeah, another recording of an hour, I guess, is the next thing I'm looking to do.
Nice.
Thanks.
That's exciting. What about do you do writing for or any other writing that's not stand up for yourself, or any other performing, acting, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love a writing job. I've done packets and stuff over the years and stuff. I've come close a couple times, but I've never had a writing job. So that would be a nice thing. But those are also, it's super competitive, and
I am bad, of course.
Yeah, not easy to come by. So I'm like, that would be great. But also, there's like part of you that's like, I'm not necessarily holding my breath either. But I co-wrote a pilot with the comic Courtney Carwall, who's very funny. And then that was a few years ago. And then I, during the pandemic, wrote a pilot by myself for the first time. So that was kind of like taking what I learned and kind of like, okay, I'm going to try this. And so that was kind of nice, just to have, I guess, done something with the time of just, or, kind of learn stuff I've learned while I've been out here from working on that other one and stuff. And so I've written, that pilot, and then it's mainly stand-up is my main focus. But yeah, I would love to write.
That pilot's probably better than you think it is. Have you gotten feedback on it at all?
People really liked it. The people who've read it.
Look at that. Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Like, in my circle, my fiance, and then like some other comics and my manager and stuff have taken a look at it, and they liked it. But it's also kind of this thing where it's like, with the pandemic, it's like, even we're so many steps removed from anyone really looking at it for real.
Yeah,
but it was
cool.
It was fun to have a project and stuff. And then that's like, that's been a lot of the pandemic, is just like, you can't do stand up, so just crawling up the walls. And I started a podcast recently with another comic, Mike Czar, who's out in New York, and we started together in Michigan. And then so that's been that's been nice to have like a project too, which I'm sure you like doing this because it just gives you something to
for sure
focus on.
For sure. That's not what I was thinking, because I started this one before the pandemic, significantly, a while ago before. But now that I feel fortunate that I have some
something
outlets
to work on.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me more about the podcast that you're doing.
It's called Quiz Me Dude, and it's me and Mike, who I said is another comic. And so we just each pick a topic that we kind of want to go down a Google wormhole for, and we just write trivia. We pick the questions and we just quiz each other on 2 topics, and like whoever does worse will give like some kind of weird homework assignment to associated with the topics.
Sounds fun.
But yeah, we've done like different pop culture stuff, and we did Tom Petty and Queen Elizabeth because like Mike got really into The Crown for a minute there, and so we'll just we each pick a thing and then we quiz each other, and it's fun. So I need every single one of your listeners to go listen to that. So
Are the questions multiple choice?
Some of them are. We do multiple choice, true and false, all kinds of variations on that, whatever kind of makes it the most entertaining for whatever the weird. It's like fun facts, but we're not taking it super seriously, so we'll throw in personal questions about Garfield or whatever it is we're talking about, and it's fun. It's fun to make.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have a good time with it. Have you ever seen Bob Seger live?
Yeah, I got to see him a couple times on his farewell tour last year before the world turned upside down. So he's probably glad he got that in too. But I got to see him in LA at the Forum, which was really fun. And then I saw him. I was back doing gigs in Detroit, and my dad and I went and saw him at this amphitheater there that used to be called Pine Knob. And Seeger is like the god of that place. Like he sold it out like 1 billion times, this like huge concert amphitheater. And so it was cool. My dad had seen him there in like the 80s and stuff. And so it was fun for us to go and watch the show and stuff. So yeah, I got to see him a couple times.
That's awesome what you're describing with your dad at the theater and Bob Seger. That's the most Michigan thing that you could do. It's like perfect.
It was very on the nose. It was funny. I took a picture of it because it's like Seeger's performing and there's like this sea of people. It's like 20,000 people because it's his farewell tour and it's in the Detroit area. So he sold it out like 6 times or something like crazy. And I took a picture of this sea of people, and my dad's like next to me, and there's like, it's an amphitheater, so there's like this sunset. And I like posted it on Instagram. I think my friend Brett was just like, "This is beautiful."
I'm sure it was,
which you wouldn't think of for a Seeger concert necessarily, but it was very like, oh, this is a nice day. It was a simpler time, 2019.
Yeah, the concert wasn't in December either.
No. Yeah, that would have been no good there.
Sweet. Well, I definitely appreciate all the time and the stories and the Seeger and the comedy, LA, Michigan, all good stuff and fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Fun to hear it for sure. Why don't you tell people where they could find you, follow you, anything else you're working on, anything else you want to talk about? I'll give you the floor here.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brad Wenzel, just my name. And then right now, I mean, I'll be back at stand-up eventually, but right now it's Quiz Me Dude podcast. Go check that out. It's a pretty fun time if you like fun facts and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that would be my main push right now.
Cool. Thanks again, man. Have a good evening. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Later. So there you have it, my conversation with Brad Wenzel. That was a lot of fun. I thank him for his time. I kind of want to read his pilot, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it as a series on TV soon enough. That dude is pretty talented, and I definitely look forward to hopefully seeing him perform again soon. But anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's at People We Love Podcast on Instagram. I'm at Adam Choid on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow me. And I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks as always. And let's talk soon. Peace.